A very good morning. We are coming to you live from Nasrec in Soweto at the G20 Summit. With us, we have Hlumelo Xaba, political analyst. A very good morning to you.
Morning to you, Anissa, and thank you very much for having me.
Take us through the G20 Summit happening particularly in South Africa and for the first time on African soil.
Well, I mean, this is something that is very unprecedented, and I think that it just goes to show the amount of gravitas that South Africa has in the African continent, but also in the global south. There are a lot of tensions that are happening, for instance, between South Africa and the US, which is a very huge superpower insofar as geopolitics are concerned. And I believe that one of the things that sought to deter South Africa from actually hosting this optimally was the US snubbing this event. But of course, now we do see that there's a lot of fraternizing with other stakeholders such as the European Union, even France for that matter. So there are some interests that we can see from other Western powers which are actually taking advantage of the fact that the US isn't coming here. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. And one thing that we can actually look forward to is the deliberations that are going to take place, because remember, there are declarations that need to be made post this or at the end of this summit. And we mustn't get ahead of ourselves. Like I said, there's a lot that's going to happen, but let's just wait and see what's going to happen. But I believe that South Africa so far has been doing quite well, surprisingly enough, in hosting this event. And I think that President Ramaphosa is actually still standing his ground right now. There are a lot of critiques around him insofar as him actually being authoritative and all of that. But in this instance, I must actually commend him for actually standing his ground insofar as the US snubbing the event and how he has actually handled the situation.
Yeah. So talking about the US snubbing, so its failed attempt at snubbing, what does this say about the United States on a global level in terms of diplomacy? What does it say for a superpower such as the United States to actually to actually feel threatened, for the lack of a better word, by a country like South Africa that's on an African continent, aside from the other politics? How has the United States displayed itself on a global stage in the diplomatic world?
Well, honestly speaking, for the longest of times, the US has always seen itself or perceived itself as this hegemonic force for obvious reasons, of course. But I think what they are not actually coming to realize, or maybe are in denial about, are the shifting global dynamics insofar as global politics are concerned, because there's a huge shift that is happening in the manner in how the global order is going to work from now moving forward. In fact, even before this. So I think that now this can be a rude awakening for them to realize that, even if we have actually seen ourselves as this big brother to these other states, but that is not the case anymore, because there are other superpowers that are emerging now. For instance, we know that some member states which are part of BRICS are also actually rising to the fore and are trying to erode the United States' position as a hegemonic force. So I think that it's high time that the US actually realizes that right now the erosion as a global superpower is actually in full effect, because one would expect that in an event of this nature, if the US is not coming, then everything comes to a standstill. But the show is going on, even though they're not here. So I think this just goes to show the shift that is happening in the global political landscape.
Yeah. Has the formation and assertiveness of the BRICS country placed BRICS as a forum, as a bloc, has it influenced the BRICS nations within, and its influence within the G20 to what we see today?
Well, if you can look at the member states that are part of BRICS, you'll realize that quite a number of them are part of the G20. Yeah. Brazil is part of the G20, India, China, as well as Saudi Arabia now. And if you can actually look at these countries' economies, you'll realize that these are actually rising forces within the global economic order. So I think that the fact that we have countries like that are member states of BRICS actually forming a formidable force like this actually goes to show the influence of the global south insofar as geopolitics and the global economic order is concerned.
Yeah. Do you think that these multilateral platforms such as the G20, the BRICS, the G7 and all of these blocks, do you think they are relevant to the everyday person, or is this just world leaders? Is this a fancier talk show on a global level with powerful leaders?
It really depends on which aspect you look at it from. I mean, such forums should be taken very seriously, but I know that a lot of people who are on the ground, in all countries for that matter, actually get very frustrated with forums such as these because they believe that they don't do anything for the ordinary person. For instance, in South Africa, there have been a lot of questions that have been asked around how is the G20 going to benefit the ordinary person in the rural areas. For instance, we know that South Africa is a country that is very not homogeneous in that it comprises of a lot of elements in terms of its demographics. So the real question lies into how will this platform actually benefit the ordinary person, and that actually goes for the world in general. How does the G20 actually benefit people within that are on the periphery on the of the global order, and how things are actually supposed to work? So I think that forums like this should really be taken seriously by those who are actually at the forefront of pioneering them, because for instance there are things such as climate change which are part of the agenda. There are things such as trade that are global trade that are part of the agenda. And when you actually speak about these things, you'll realize that it's things that ultimately benefit the ordinary person in all of these respective countries. So that's why I believe that these forums shouldn't just be talk shows, but it should be something that is taken seriously, because the end user is the one that ultimately has to benefit from everything that is deliberated upon or decided by the member states of these countries. Because like I said, these are actually the 20 biggest economies of the world, and it can't just be a talk show when you actually have people from different countries with actually different resources that can assist one another in actually bringing sustainable development, which is part of the discussions that will be taking place in this G20.
Yeah. Just the last one, Mr. Xaba, and bringing it back home into the local politics. We haven't seen much opposition when it comes to the G20. Do you think that opposition parties are on their best behavior because guests are around and they know where to draw the line between domestic issues and international issues?
Well, honestly speaking, something that I actually always hold a view on is that the political opposition in South Africa is in a way devoid, because you know that a lot of the parties that usually form part of the opposition are now part of the G20, meaning that they actually have less to lose by and not opposing whatever it is that is happening, because of the fact that they're part of the gravy train in a way. So you have parties such as the Economic Freedom Fighters, the MK Party, and other small parties that actually form part of the opposition bloc, meaning that their voice insofar as actually having a dissenting view against such a summit will actually be hollow, because of the fact that they are overcrowded, or actually overcrowded by the voices coming from within the government, because of the fact that this is a 10-party multi-party coalition, which actually goes back to the fact that I said that currently the opposition in South Africa is a little bit devoid, in the sense that they do not really have, not that they don't have a say, but whatever it is that they say will actually be overcrowded by those that are actually in the government of national unity, which I believe is something that has actually got us to where we are now. Because even within this multi-party coalition, we haven't heard the DA actually ventilating dissenting views in regards to the G20 summit, because some of their ministers, by the way, are part of very strategic ministries such as John Steenhuisen, who is part of the agricultural ministry, which we know is actually a very attractive ministry in the global markets, you understand. So that even some other ministers, for instance, who are part of certain parties that are going to be part of the G20 in their respective positions. So I believe that they actually have more to lose than those who are actually in the opposition parties. Hence, we don't see a lot of dissenting views in regards to this.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Mr. Xaba, for your time. That was Mr. Xaba, political analyst, speaking to us about everything G20, from what South Africa has to benefit, what the ordinary person has to benefit, to also our domestic issues. Speaking about parties that have been, that are part of the GNU, that would otherwise be opposition, that are now have been, I don't want to say silenced, but there isn't much views from them because they form part of the G20, and those such as the Economic Freedom Fighters who would have a view, basically their views being swallowed because there isn't much of an opposition compared to the parties that are part of the GNU. That was Mr. Xaba, political analyst, like I said, and do stay tuned to Salam Media. We'll be bringing you much, much more interviews.